is the Gallagher Grand Prix of Indianapolis. Felix Rosenquist of Arrow McLaren SP on the left-hand side of your screen, starting from the pole with Alexander Rossi. Let's go racing at the Brickyard.
Picture perfect start, 2 wide all the way down, but now 4 wide into turn 1. Who's that? McLaughlin.
Joseph
Newgarden sending it up the inside.
And Lundgaard in that red and white car on the inside. He's come from 6th to 4th.
Oh,
Spinner.
Pato
Award, one of the championship contenders.
Marcus Ericsson getting through there. Sounds like he may have stalled the car.
I got hit and I stalled.
Sounds like he got hit from behind and he stalled. They're still going 2 by through the chicane. Tough to get through there, Dale.
Ready to go, and here we go.
And there you see push-to-pass seconds remaining. It's been Colton Herta, the third-place car. That black and yellow Gainbridge car has been on the button a lot so far, almost 25% of his total usage. They get 200 seconds for the race as Rossi goes to the inside.
And blows it, runs a little wide, Alexander Rossi.
Job, buddy.
And here on the outside comes his teammate Colton Herta, up to second.
It went from bad to worse as he stalled leaving pit lane, and here we go. McLaughlin now on those alternates, going by our pole sitter, Felix Rosenquist, into turn 1.
Tell you what, this guy is on the move. McLaughlin is on a mission. He was frustrated yesterday. He was a little bit kind of bemused and confused as to why he couldn't find the speed in qualifying, but boy, he's got the race pace.
And the leader is in. Scott McLaughlin stayed out long. This is going to be his primary run. This is the less preferred tire. It's more durable, but not nearly as fast. McLaughlin is back out, but that was a strong stint.
Oh, look out. Trouble for a multi-time winner here, Simon Pagenaud.
And they're out of fuel, guys. They just came on the radio and said, we're going to run out of fuel. You got to save. They didn't make it.
Oh, no.
The green flag is out. Dust is flying, and Colton Herta with a monster jump on his teammate Rossi.
Drama's here for Colton Herta. What's happened to the Gainbridge Honda?
Oh, no.
The race leader.
We saw that bodywork damage from the contact with Will Power on lap 1.
Can you keep going? Can you keep going?
A couple of really interesting things happening. Big hit there.
He did hit the curb awfully hard.
He sure did. I wonder, that seemed very timely.
Hate going on through the field. This is Connor Daly going to the outside of turn 12, making the long way around. This looks a lot like Grosjean and Rossi at Mid-Ohio. DiFrancesco on the inside.
Here he is, leaders in.
Need a money stop here. They've talked about how their pit crew needs to be perfect here today. They're going to need it again. Used reds going on for Rossi here, trying to win for the first time in 49 races, Kevin.
Gap's gone from 3.5 seconds down to 2.3, back out to over 4.
What's going on there in the left rear?
Alexander Rossi ends a 3-year drought and is an IndyCar race winner again. The first time at the Brickyard on the road course. He's won on the big track at the big race, the Indianapolis 500. Rossi is now a winner on the Brickyard road course.
You don't see him going crazy in the cockpit. What I see is exhale. Relief.
Great job, boys. Great job.
And here he is, finally a winner again in the NTT IndyCar Series.
Watch the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix Sunday, August 7th at 3 p.m. on NBC.
And with that, good evening, race fans, and welcome to another edition of the Push to Pass podcast. I am Derik Vance, and it is a treat to be with you again this evening. And what a lineup that we have in store for you. Obviously, tonight we're going to recap the race that you just seen there, the Gallagher Grand Prix out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. And then after we recap that, I'm going to bring in an amazing dude I had the opportunity to meet this weekend out at IMS. He is part of the INDYBOYS podcast. We've had Justin on before, but tonight Tristan Griner is going to be joining us to discuss, why he got into journalism, why he's gotten into IndyCar and other forms of racing, and then give his recap on what he's seen this past weekend out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course, and then previewing the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in the streets of Nashville this weekend. And then also, too, I will give you a little bit of preview as well of that race, the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in the street course there in downtown Nashville, which, by the way, Push to Pass podcast is going to be covering that race in its entirety from tomorrow to Sunday. So pay attention to the Push to Pass podcast social media, which you see down below on the screen for all race updates. And then right before we get on out of here, we get some news and notes, and then Mike from BetIndy, as always, is going to join us to talk a little bit on the betting side. Not only at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course last weekend, but looking ahead to the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix in the streets of Nashville. But before we get to that, we do need to recap last weekend's race at the IMS road course. As I mentioned, the Gallagher Grand Prix. So let's get into that, and what a race that we had out there last weekend. Alexander Rossi being able to snap his 49 race winless streak to capture the P1 at the Gallagher Grand Prix, again at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Rossi won on the road course on Saturday, where he actually won, if you think back to 2016, in his victory in the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500, which, if you remember, jump-started his American motorsport career. Think back, Alexander Rossi's last victory, if you believe this or not, was at Road America in the 10th race of the 2019 season. Yes, 2019. The driver of the number 27 Napa Auto Nation Andretti Autosport Honda was in contention for a podium from the outset of the race, where, if you remember correctly, he started in P2. And then he ran, obviously, behind pole sitter Felix Rosenquist of the number 7 Arrow McLaren SP Chevrolet. And also during the race as well, he ran behind or in second place for the race as well, teammate Colton Herta of the number 26 Gamebridge Honda at the halfway point of the 85 lap race on the at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. That is where Rossi took control of the race and didn't look back. Quote, "It was a relief," Rossi sighed on the victory podium. "There's been support for me for so long. Shout out to Andretti Autosport and their continued belief. We still got some more to go, but this was really a great track for us to do it at. Back home in Indianapolis, that was really amazing." The long slump led him to seek a fresh start, and the California native will leave Andretti Autosport, if you remember, at the end of the season, his 7th season, to drive next year for Arrow McLaren SP. It was Michael Andretti who gave Alexander Rossi a shot in IndyCar when he was washed out of Formula One and returned to the United States, seeking to continue his career. Rossi's surprise victory as a rookie in the celebrated 100th Indianapolis 500 made him an instant star and earned him loyal sponsorship that has weathered this long drought. Some of his issues in the last 3 seasons have been team-inflicted errors, mechanical failures, and a full Andretti team meltdown, if you remember correctly, earlier this month at Mid-Ohio. But Saturday was hardly a perfect day for the organization. Colton Herta controlled the early part of the race, but slowed from the lead right before the halfway mark. Bounding over the infield curbs, Herta's lead turned into a finish of P24 on lap 42 as he reported problems with his transmission. Quote, "There's no gears," Herta said as he crawled to a stop at the end of entry to pit lane. Quote, "Nothing I can do," he radioed as he continued to cruise his unpowered Honda back to pit lane. He later walked alone down pit road back to the paddock as the race continued without him. Quote, "Man, this is sad," Herta tweeted. "We showed what we can do. We'll just have to keep going to try to win again." With Herta out of the frame, Rossi ran away with the race, earning his 8th career NTT IndyCar Series win with ease in a relatively straightforward day, ending with rookie Christian Lundgaard, who we will hear from later in the show, finishing a distant 3.5 seconds behind the number 30, Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing Honda, to compete a 1-2 for the Japanese manufacturer. Rossi, after the race, sympathized with teammate Colton Herta. Quote, "I do feel for Colton, I do, but I'm thankful something finally came our way," Rossi said. "I think Colton was definitely strong, and we have much of the same race car, and that battle would have been interesting, but it was the 27th turn, and that is awesome." Meanwhile, Andretti rookie Delvin DeFrancesca drew the ire, if you caught this on the radio, of Connor Daly as tempers flared when DeFrancesca ran Daly off the track. Quote, "Delvin needs to be kicked out of this racing series. He is an idiot," end quote, Daly screamed over the radio. There has been speculation that Michael Andretti is reconsidering bringing DeFrancesca back for a sophomore season. Lundgaard, a rookie from Denmark who made his IndyCar debut in this race just 1 year ago, finished P2, giving Ray Hall Letterman Lanigan Racing its first podium of the season. Quote from Lundgaard, "Second, I think this team deserves every bit of that." And rounding out the top three, Will Power, who finished third for the Team Penske and Chevrolet driver, cycled back to the top of the IndyCar standings for the third time this season. He now holds a 9-point lead over Indianapolis 500 winner Marcus Ericsson, who started and finished P11. So let's get to the standings here after the race, and then we'll get to driver interviews, and then we'll bring in our first guest. So as you see, the finishing standings up on your screen. Let me get to another tab here real quick, and we will run them down for you. It was Alexander Rossi, Christian Lundgaard, Will Power, Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, Renus VK, Graham Rahal, Scott Dixon, Felix Rosenquist, and Alex Pillow rounding out the top 10. Then it was Marcus Ericsson, Pato Award, David Malukas, Callum Ilott, Takuma Sato, Roman Grosjean, Connor Daly, Delvin DeFrancesca, Elio Castroneves, and Jack Harvey rounding out to number 20. 21, Dalton Kellett, Jimmy Johnson, Kyle Kirkwood, Colton Herta, and ending 25th was Simon Pagenaud. So that is your full field rundown of the Gallagher Grand Prix at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway road course. Let's get to some of the interviews that we were able to pick up post-race.
Decent race. Unfortunately, we started so far back that, even the strategy of, switching it up didn't really work, and everybody kind of jumped on the same thing. We had good pace, good speed. Car was good over the long run. Managed 8, which decent for the point stays, I think, for us. We've got a lot of good tracks coming up next for our cars, and hopefully running 38 points back, so we're still in this, and we have a good one.
Hey guys, Ray Dunn here at Indy Road Course. It was a tough day today. Started 7th, had some issues at the start, had a really bad second stint, and just drove our pace a lot. So we came home on 10th, which is not terrible, but obviously not what we wanted. So yeah, time to push a lot for the last 4 races we have and gain those points back to try and get the second championship.
All right, so race day here at Indianapolis. I think we used a bad time at limitation after what happened yesterday and starting 25th, finishing 11th. I think that's a good day. We we were strong out there. We had a good strategy going very long on that first stint, and that I think was going to play out really well for us for the second half of the race. Unfortunately, that yellow came very badly timed for us because it was just at a point where we were starting to make some gains. So it sort of neutralized the field, and that advantage we would have had for the second half of the race sort of got away from us because of that yellow. So not ideal, but still P11 from 25th is something we need to be happy about. We're still very much in the mix in the championship, and we're going to Nashville, where we won last year. So looking forward to that.
All right, everybody, we just finished the race here at INDYGP, and unfortunately this weekend is kind of just unfortunate event after unfortunate event. I mean, in practice we had some damper issues, in qualifying we had some brake issues, and now in the race we ended up getting punted on the early laps, and then just some unlucky yellows. So unfortunately we just can't really seem to get just luck the whole way through of a race, but throughout all of it we went all the way back to 18th, and we worked our way back up into the 13th position. So basically from where we started, we only lost 2 positions. It's just I think we could have been going forward. I think we had a much better car. We ended up having a break. Well, it was my fault. I was pushing really hard trying to get around people, and I locked up the front right. I mean, it was so much vibration. It was quite funny. If anybody listened on the radio, it's definitely some comedy over there. But all in all, I think with all the unfortunate things that happened this weekend, I think we did a pretty good job to overcome it. So I'll see you guys at Nashville.
Huge thank you to those fellow drivers there that were able to lend a minute or so to get a comment, get a remarks there after the race on Saturday. So before we get to our first guest of the evening, let's take a look at the current point standings here, as we are about a handful of races left here in the 2022 NTT IndyCar Series. As you see the point standings there on your screen, Will Power with 431 points. Then it's Marcus Ericsson, Joseph Newgarden, Scott Dixon, Pato Award, Alex Palou, Scott McLaughlin, Felix Rosenquist, Alexander Rossi, and Colton Herta round out the top 10. Then it's Rinus VK, Graham Rahal, Simon Pagino, Roman Grosjean, Christian Lundgaard, who finished second this weekend, Connor Daly, David Malukas, who you just heard from there, Elio Castroneves, Takuma Sato, and Callum Ilott round out 11 through 20. Then it's Jimmy Johnson, Jack Harvey, Delvin DeFrancesca, Kyle Kirkwood, Dalton Kellett round out 21 through 25. So good points race for a lot of drivers, and not so point race obviously for some drivers as well. And like I said, I do see that our first guest of the evening is here joining us. So let me bring this individual in, and we will have a little bit of a chat here. As you see, and as I talked about at the beginning of the show, privileged and honored to be joined by now 2/3 of the INDYBOYS podcast, which I know people check out on a daily basis. If they don't, shame on them. But Christian Greider is joining us, and Tristan, first and foremost, let me say thank you for taking a little bit of time on short notice to carve some time out of your busy schedule, which I know that you have and you carry, to join us here on Push to Pass.
Yeah, it's an honor. Appreciate that I get to come on here. I've listened to you for a little bit. Ever since Jay was on the show, I've tried to make sure to tune in since. So, I'm excited to be here.
Oh, see, the check's in the mail for sure. But first and foremost, before we get into anything a little bit, can you give our audience a little bit of background on you? And again, if they don't follow you on social media, shame on them, because you are a great follow indeed. But give us a little bit of background and why what got you into journalism, and specifically what got you into covering open wheel sports.
Yeah, so name is Tristan Greider. I'm 21 years old. I've been watching motorsports pretty much my entire life. My first race I remember tuning into was I believe it was Dover 2004. And there was a NASCAR race, and I picked my favorite driver because he was leading, and it was Casey Kane. So ever since then, I've kind of been a NASCAR, IndyCar diehard growing up in Indianapolis. It's all around you. My father was a massive IndyCar fan, so kind of had to be part of that, and then became more of a fan of other auto sports such as sports cars, super trucks, and F1 a little bit later in my life. So yeah, I started covering auto sports because I actually had a class that I had to do a project for, and my professor asked me if I wanted to do a racing podcast, and I was like, yes, of course, I would love to do that. And so I contacted my high school buddy Daniel, and he told me about his friend Jay, and we all three decided we were going to start the Indy Boys Racing Podcast in January of this year, and 7 months in, it's going pretty strong. We're going to release our 30th episode tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern on Thursday. Just got back from IMS on the road course. Ran into Derik a couple times around there. We watched the end of the NASCAR race together. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much it. You can follow me on my Twitter at Tristan Grider _, Instagram, the exact same handle, and INDYBOYS Podcast at INDYBOYS Podcast. So yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I did see that you guys did put out a tweet here within the hour, talking about how you guys, how you formed this podcast that has ultimately taken off, as you can see by your subscribers and such. But talk a little bit about, we'll talk more about previewing Nashville this weekend and recapping the road course race out at IMS. But interesting caveat, if people don't know, talk about the connections that all three of you have made to the drivers since you formed this amazing podcast that you guys do.
So pretty much, basically, when we were starting the show, we wanted to do it our way. That's always what we've tried to do. We've not tried to copy people. We don't want to have another sports show. We wanted to do it our way, and that is why we've been able to get some of the connections that we have. We started this show because our friends that we followed on Twitter that are in the NASCAR and the IndyCar Twitter community have been major supporters of us, and they've shared us, and they've liked, they've followed, they've shared, as I always like to say, they've showed their grandmas the show. And that built us connections to younger drivers. The most popular, I would say, would be IndyCar rookie David Malukas. We've known him ever since he was back in lights. Daniel, the one host who hasn't been on Push to Pass, has been friends with David for over a year now. And we told him, I was like, when we start the show, you got to be our first guest. And he was like, oh, I'm on it. And so 3 weeks into our show, we already had an IndyCar rookie on the show with Malukas. But we've also been able to make connections in the media. One of our good friends through the media is IndyCar, I guess, controversial person sometimes, but David Land. He's a really big supporter of us. Very nice guy outside of things when he's not tweeting things that he shouldn't be. But we love that man. Darian Gilliam with Black Flags Matter covers a lot of NASCAR stuff. Big supporter of us. Has actually been on our show before. So that was a cool one. And I feel like the main one, the biggest one, is actually my good friend, Dalton Kellett, driver of the 4 for AJ Foyt Racing. That man is a living meme, and I love him for it. One of the nicest guys, I would say, in the paddock, and he has connected us to so many people and has overall just been a nice guy, willing to be on the show whenever I ask him, willing for me to make fun of him, and overall super genuine guy. But I also got to talk about the connections, I'd say, with Burnout Sports. Tony Donahue, Jared Sparkman, and Luke Edwards, they started this thing last year about like, let's make the Barstool, but with racing. And that's what we've tried to do over there. And I feel like we're kind of doing it. And that's kind of like where the young element comes from. Cause I mean, I'm 21, right? Like freshly 21. I turned 21 in June. So it's been an experience. But overall, I'd say just we have that aspect of connecting to our viewers and connecting to younger drivers because they're approached by these guys in the media, especially in the media center. These people have been covering autosports for 50 years and they ask the same questions over and over again. So something that I feel like garage guys do and something I feel like we do is we try not to make the interviews boring and we want them to have a good time. And so I'm not asking them racing questions. I'm asking them things that are genuine to them. Sure, racing has to come up every once in a while, but one of my favorite interview moments I ever had was in our first interview with Malukas. I asked him about jiu-jitsu because I am a martial artist and I wanted to know about his jiu-jitsu background and stuff. And we went on this 20-minute tangent just talking about martial arts and how the owner of the team, his father, is a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So you try to take the interviews, I'd say, a little bit away from the racing aspect of things because they get asked those questions all the time. You'll get better connections and they tell your teammates about you. Other connections, I'd say we have a lot of Indy Lights guys on Andretti that listen to the show. I know Kiffin Simpson, freshly driver for HMD, listens to the show every week. Hunter McElray and Stingray Robb. Hunter listens to the show as much as he can. I don't know about Stingray, but we're still homies. But yeah, I'd say just connections and being friendly and treating them as people, not as like people that you see on TV. I'd say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, definitely. Watching all three of you, your style, I think you hit the nail on the head. That obviously you're going to make it about racing, but yet you're going to go on a more personal aspect, a personal level, and I think you're absolutely spot on with that. And I would tell you, first of all, to be 21 again, but secondly, I can't believe you would say David Land's controversial. But
what? Never.
Yeah,
never. I love the man for it, but
absolutely,
he can get into some hot water.
But you know what though? If you're not in hot water, you're not doing your job. So, but yeah, your style, all three of your styles together, watching you guys, that's one of my racing shows that I watch on a weekly basis after finding you guys, and you guys have definitely found your niche, and definitely my advice to you, and you don't need it. But just keep what you guys are doing, because what you're doing is, that's your thing, and don't shy away from that any way.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, with all the sentiments out of the way now, again, checks in the mail. We, as you said, we were together this weekend, not only for the IndyCar race on Saturday, but the NASCAR race on Sunday. Interesting, not an interesting finish as much in the NASCAR or in the Indy race as NASCAR. But on Saturday, what was your takeaways? If it wasn't for Alexander Rossi getting the monkey off his back, it was a pretty ho-hum race.
I feel like we've been saying it all season on our show, at least, that there hasn't been a mid IndyCar race this whole season. I feel like this was the one that it's like, if you tuned in this week, you might not tune in next week. Definitely a race for the fans, I would say. If you're already a fan of IndyCar, you know this was coming. Indy road courses never really put up the most extravagant, I would say, IndyCar races, excluding May. That was just a hell fest, I guess, in May with the rain. But I would say that definitely a little bit of a snoozer, I would say. Lots of action, I would say, deeper in the pack, not as much up front, but without the Rossi win, it would definitely have been like a rated lower for me. But since Alexander Rossi won his first race in 3 years, you have to. And fun fact, I've actually now seen Alexander Rossi's first win with Andretti, and I don't want to say his last win, but most likely his last win with Andretti.
Wow, look at that. Look at you. Yeah, it was, not as exciting, I think, as what the other races have been this year. I don't, outside of maybe, this one just being, a little lackluster. And I know you guys have touched on this too. There hasn't been a race that we were like, that we've watched that we walk away going, you know what? I really don't want to tune in next week. It's been exciting. It's been a roller coaster, and the storylines of this year are just, from Alex Palou to Arrow McLaren. I mean, just up and down, you name it. Andretti, the squabble that they had earlier this year as well. But congratulations, Alexander Rossi. You want to talk about a guy that he's been on the doorstep this year so many times, and it's been one thing after another. It was finally nice to see him put a complete race together. But then we find out earlier today that IndyCar may have found an empty water bottle that forced his car to be a little bit underweight.
Yeah, a little crazy. Was kind of surprised by that one. They docked him 25 points. Not gonna go full Denny Hamlin on him. Not gonna take the win away, but was definitely a surprising notification from that. But I don't know, just was very surprised. You don't really see that very often in IndyCar. I mean, they normally say if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But you don't normally see that in IndyCar. So yeah, they took 25 points away. They're probably going to fine him $25,000. They normally do points with money. So yeah, but as long as they're not taking the win away from him, I don't think they can take the win away from him. It's Wednesday as we're filming this, and he won over half a week ago. So it would be crazy to see if that would happen.
That would be absolutely crazy. You're right there to see that. Speaking of IndyCar, NASCAR, are you a fan of the double weekends here? And would you like to see more of them? And I know a lot of people aren't happy with NASCAR running the road course, and they would go back to the oval. If you were Doug Bowles, how would you handle this?
Well, you see, if I was Doug Bowles, I'm from Indianapolis. I'm just going to say that really quickly. I'm from Indianapolis. I've been to the Brickyard 400 every year since 2008. They've ran the oval from 2000 in my life from 2001 to 2020. And even before that, 1994 to 2020, we were on the Brickyard 400 every single year. The most iconic race I can remember in my life was a Brickyard 400. I miss the oval really bad. And this weekend, now 2 great races on the road course for NASCAR. I'm not saying that we should get rid of the Indy road course for NASCAR. I'm just saying I would like to see a doubleheader weekend where I'm going to break this down really quick. Friday, I would love to see the trucks and the Xfinity cars on IRP. I would love to see that. Trucks on IRP was freaking incredible. It was a slip and sliding classic IRP truck series race, that craftsman, that grit and grind of the Ron Hornaday, Todd Bodine era. Loved that. Saturday, I want to see IndyCar and the Cup cars on the road course. I want to see that. And then on Sunday, run shorter miles. It doesn't have to be 400 miles. Run like a quick 200-mile sprint with the Cup cars on the oval. I'd love to see that. I think that would be amazing. I think that would be nice for the fans. It would make a little bit more extravagant, I would say, because 400 miles on IMS in the Cup cars is pretty much double the time of what the Indy 500 is. So that's my take. I want to see the oval back. I don't want to see 400 miles again. But with this new car, this next-gen car has turned some boring racetracks into absolute bangers. I don't think I've looked forward to Michigan this much until today. I'm so excited for the Cup cars on Michigan. I was not excited for Auto Club this season, and it's my favorite race of the year so far. And I want to see this new car on the oval before it goes away. I just want to see it because this package is too good on these 2-mile racetracks in these ovals that aren't super speedways or short tracks. I just need to see it, and I think it would make some really extravagant and exciting racing. So yes, I want to see the Cup cars back on the oval.
Now, the only objection that I have to that is my issue would be, is there enough time in between Saturday and Sunday for construction, for taking away whatever would need to be taken away obstruction-wise to make the oval accessible? That's my only issue.
Yeah, I don't know for sure, seeing as last year it took them to remove a curb off of turn 5. So, I don't really know if that's in the plans. I mean, damn, they had Doug Bowles out there sweeping literally last year. He was there. I watched it with my own eyes. And yeah, that's really all I gotta say. Is there time? I don't know, because that Cup race would probably end around like 5, and then you work you have to wait until everyone gets out of the track. So you're probably not starting until 9. It'd have to be a complete overnight thing. You probably won't finish until 5 in the morning, if that. Indy doesn't have lights, so like there's no lights on the Pagoda Bob Pockrass, so don't really know.
So then how would you feel? I know the idea is being floated around. I know next year they're still going to stick to the road course, and then it sounds like potentially after that we're going to go alternate every other year. What do you think of that?
I had actually heard until Doug Bowles said that we were doing the road course this weekend that we were going to the oval next year. So guess something changed his mind, I guess. But originally I thought the plan was oval next year, then road course, then oval next year. But one more year of road course. As much as I want to see the oval again, if it's coming in 2024, it's coming in 2024. The thing that's going to be sad is that I think Kevin Harvick is retiring next year, and I would have loved to see him try to go for a 4th and tie Jeff. But that's really the only thing. But yeah, looking forward to the oval in 24 if that's the case. I'm looking forward to the road course next year because we've had 2 great races in a row on the IMS road course, with 2 guys getting their second career Cup Series wins, in AJ Allmendinger and Tyler Reddick. So it's getting some young guys or guys that don't win a lot wins in the Cup Series, and I like that. So yeah, works for me. We'll say that now. Chase Elliott's going to win next year.
Yeah, can't disagree there. But you said Kevin Harvick could be stepping away. If him and Kyle Busch team up potentially, I think Kevin sticks around just a little bit longer.
I think so too, but with the whole situation that's going on at Stewart-Haas Racing, Eric Almirola has said that he doesn't know if he's actually going to step down or not now. I talked to him on Saturday. I talked to him on Saturday, and he was like, doors open. I always say never. And I was like, oh, okay, man. And then I talked to Cole Custer, and it looks like it won't be Almirola that could be leaving Stewart-Haas Racing. It could be Custer. I know what you're thinking, guys. Cole Custer leaving Stewart-Haas Racing when his dad is number 3 in the company? Don't know. There's always been that rumor that Haas has been wanting out of NASCAR. But Custer reportedly could be stepping down and moving to that full-time Xfinity Series ride like he's been rumored to in the last couple of years. Honestly, it might be good for him. Yes, he's the only he has a win at Kentucky in 2020, but he only has 2 top 10s this season, 1 on a super speedway, 1 last week at Indy. I think Custer should go back to Xfinity for a year. And if they do that, Kyle Busch could be a big contender for that 41. I think they might change the number to the 51 just because KBM is his thing. I think we could see a Stewart Busch Racing, maybe a Stewart Haas Rowdy Racing or something like that. I think that'd be cool. I think if that does happen, KBM is going to switch manufacturers to Ford. There's a lot of dominoes they need to fall there, but I think that he would replace Custer overall, because I don't think that Preece is the replacement for Almirola. I think Preece is Harvick's replacement. So you put Preece at full-time in the Xfinity Series next season. You could put Herbst in a possible... They have that alliance with Rick Ware Racing. You put Herbst, say, in the 15 car full time next season. If he does good results, possibly move him up to a Cup car for the big team. But Riley Herbst is putting up results. He's not getting wins. He's getting top fives though every week, literally every week. And I don't think I've ever said that about Riley Herbst, that I think he deserves a Cup ride, but I think Riley Herbst deserves a Cup ride. So I can see that happening soon.
Yeah, it sounds like Cole Custer is going to fall under the moniker "What have you done for me lately?" In the same sense that sounds like Devlin D. Francesca could potentially happen in IndyCar as well. But getting back to road courses, particularly street courses, we do have Nashville this weekend, Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. What's your thoughts on that? I know this is only the second year of its existence. What a hell of a first race. Just 1 year ago. It sounds like the turns are a little bit more wider, so drivers may be facing just a little bit of a different course than they did just 1 year ago.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. One of our first episodes that we actually did for our podcast, I believe it was probably the second episode, Daniel talked all about Nashville and why it was his favorite yet least favorite race of the year. I'm excited for Nashville next week. Haven't really seen as much marketing for it as I did last year. I've actually seen no marketing for it. So there you go. Don't know if they're really pushing Nashville as much this year. Last year we saw the birth of Ericsson, and I think that we're going to see the continuation of Ericsson next week. However, Colton Herta does, I don't want to say own this racetrack because he crashed into this racetrack, but he led 75% of last year's race at Nashville. So I think the 26 could be fast, especially coming off of a bad weekend at Indy. He would want to rebound and do well at a track that he's good at. I could see the 8 and the 26 being really good next week. However, this track brought the chaos last year, seeing as I think I saw a car spin into the wall every 5 laps. I'm expecting maybe a little bit less. I'd say maybe every 10 laps. You have to have a Jimmy Johnson spin in there somewhere. So I'd say probably that much. Looking forward to this weekend, though. I'm happy that they widened the turns because it was a full-on Nashville traffic in there last year. Again, seeing Ericsson flying through the air and then winning with a completely new nose last year was hilarious. And I have that t-shirt somewhere. But it's the Air Ericsson t-shirt, like the Jordan one, but it's his car. Love that shirt. Absolute banger. But yeah, I think that it'll be a good race this year, hoping for a less chaotic race than last year, because guys, doesn't have to be a chaotic race to be a good race is what I always say. So yeah, that's what my take is on Nashville. Very excited.
Yeah, that was actually the first race I was able to cover as part of the media. And, watching that, the early stages of that and seeing Marcus Ericsson go flying through the air, and you're like, there's no way in hell that this guy's going to end up finishing where he finished. And then you look up towards the end and who's right there? Marcus Ericsson. You're like, what? How he just flew through the air earlier.
Yes, first win.
Yeah, absolutely. He did. So it is definitely going to be interesting. Obviously Alexander Rossi got to be carrying a lot of momentum. I mean, look at the finishes he's had as of late. You also noted the dominance that Colton Herta had last year as well. He has done that at quite a few races, not only last year but this year. But it's just something has come up to bite him there at the end. And obviously you can't count out Team Penske, all 3 cars, the dominant season that they've had. I don't think you can count them out. And then I'm also glad to see, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Simona Di Silvestro actually got a sponsor, so she's going to be there this weekend as well. So definitely glad to see that.
Yeah, happy that we can get a full 26 car field in there. Still kind of disappointed about the whole situation over at AJ Foyt with the 11 car. Not seeing Tati or seeing JR on the ovals was really interesting. Hopefully they can get that all sorted out. But very happy for that 16 Paretta ECR team. It's going to be cool seeing them out there.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Glad to see she was able to pick up another sponsor, and interested to see how many of the 5 races I believe that we have left that she is going to be entered in. Tristan, before we get out of here, we got a few minutes left. I know we talked about the project that you and your other two, Daniel and Justin, do. Let's talk about that a little bit more. My favorite segment, I have to say, outside of the ongoing humor that goes through the whole show, I love the your picks towards the end. That you guys, it's interesting because you guys just don't focus on IndyCar. You guys just don't focus on NASCAR. You focus on open wheel racing abroad. And a secret that I haven't told a lot of people, there are like the SRX series. I started watching a little bit of that just because you guys would talk about that and would pick on that. So some of the open wheel stuff that you guys go over, I'm actually taking a peek at. Not that I know 100% what's going on, but it actually piques my interest.
Yeah, you're like Ryan Hunter-Reay. I remember you, right?
Yes.
But yeah, I feel like the whole predictions thing kind of started about halfway through. We would always make picks because at the beginning of the season we made preseason predictions, and we would like kind of like show like who we picked in the preseason. I was like, why don't we just like pick people? And so we started doing that, and then it became a whole thing. It became kind of like a fantasy football sort of thing. So now like whoever wins at the end of the season is going to get us a special reward that we have not actually revealed what it is yet. So you guys are going to have to find out when the final, when the F1 World Championship happens at the end of the season. But yeah, it's been fun. I had a big weekend, guys. Like, you don't understand. I've been behind all season. I've had absolute dirt luck. It's been not fun picking Michael McDowell every week. And I had a good weekend. I got 4 out of a possible 7 points correct. We do a point for each of the races. So if we have Cup, Xfinity, Trucks like we did last week, IndyCar, and then we do 3 points for the podium correctly on the F1 series. So say like Max Verstappen wins like every week. If you pick him, then you get a point. But we also will cover lights. We'll cover F2 sometimes. We'll cover SRX back when that was on. So yeah, it kind of turned into this whole fantasy football aspect. I love it. I know Daniel loves it. He's still in the lead. But yeah, very close race. So if you guys want to tune in a little bit later to the end of the season, we'll see when I'm hoisting my win over everyone. It'll be exciting. But yeah, I'm glad that you like the predictions because it's probably my favorite part of the show as well.
Yeah, the only thing that disappoints me is none of you will pick Jimmy Johnson. You'll wave his flag, but you won't pick him. I can't figure that out.
You mean this flag?
Yes,
yeah.
Again, Tristan, can you tell people where they can find not only you on social media? If they don't follow you already, shame on them. But where can they find you at, and then where can they find the podcast at?
Yeah, you guys can follow me on my social media. It's at Tristan Grider _. It's the same for everything. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You guys can follow me there. Follow us on Burnout Sports. You guys can see us there. Follow at Burnout Sports, but also follow us on our Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at INDYBOYS Podcast. You guys can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. We're pretty much everywhere. So if you guys just want to tune into our YouTube channel at INDYBOYS Racing Podcast, you guys can watch us there. We have our show every week on Thursdays, but we also have an F1 My Team that Jay does. If you guys are into F1 or into some more career sims, Jay has our INDYBOYS Autosports team over there. You can check out Jay and F2's Richard Vashore every week. That's a good time. That's pretty much what I do. I live for certified Dalton Kellett moments, and my name is Tristan Grider. So yeah.
Awesome. Again, Tristan, huge thank you for taking a little bit of time out of your busy schedule to join us here on Push to Pass. Hopefully we'll be able to catch up again down the road. And as I said earlier, you guys keep up what you're doing. You have found your niche, and don't let anybody tell you any different.
No, I appreciate that, Derik. It's been an honor. Fun show. I like it.
Yeah, Absolutely. We'll talk again soon.
All right. See you, buddy.
Yep. Again, go follow him on social media. Go check him and his crew, Daniel and Jay, out on their podcast that they do. They do amazing work, and trust me, you will walk away knowing just a little bit more about auto racing than you did going in. We do have one more segment left, and anybody that has been watching this show from its inception till now knows what that is. It is the man that keeps the money train rolling. Mike from BetIndy. Mike, how are you doing?
Good, man. How are you doing? Getting excited to head to Nashville?
Actually, absolutely. Headed there tomorrow afternoon. Can't wait. I hope the rain holds off. That's one thing that worries me looking at the weather. But speaking of racing, I know last weekend Alexander Rossi got the big monkey off his back by winning here at the road course. I'm not sure if that helped your pocket out at all, but hopefully it's somebody.
Yeah, it pisses me off a little bit. I've been betting Rossi all year, and he came in second, I think, 3 times? I don't know. I had Rossi tickets when he was the bridesmaid and not the bride. So, no, I wasn't on Rossi last week. It was in a great spot last week. We talked about it on the podcast. We mentioned VK and Rosenquist. Rosenquist scored the pole. We had him at 25-1. So that was somebody that we tipped on the podcast here before qualifying happened. And it worked out great. I had the pole sitter. I had him at 25-1. His number went all the way down to 2-3-1 before the race. That's exactly what I'm looking to do. It opened up for me to spend some more cash in other places, such as matchups and top threes. So last week actually worked out pretty well because of the matchup bets. The matchup bets in any car, like that's if you're truly trying to make some money. The head-to-head and the matchups offer your best value. It's kind of the best way I can describe it. It's like in Vegas makes all their money. The to win bets are the slot machines, right? You're just pulling slot machines. You're more than likely going to lose more than you win. You're hoping to hit a couple winners per year. We've done we've had a really good year this year, but the head-to-head is the blackjack table. You got much more of a 50-50 shot, against the sports book there. So last week, the head-to-head matchups came out late Sunday. We talked about them on the Spaces on Burnout Bets right before the race, and swept the board on those. Had 4 matchups targeting VK. Was most of those, but a couple others, and those were 4-0. So didn't have Rossi, but got power for a top 3 bet. And ended up sweeping the matchup. So it ended up being a profitable week.
Yeah, I can't imagine how frustrating it is to put money on Rossi. He continues to get second, and then the week that you don't put money on him, by God, he comes across first. I can't imagine how frustrating that was on a Saturday afternoon for you.
Yeah, I had the Rosenquist money, the 25-1 ticket. I was really pulling for that. That really wasn't much of a sweat. He went backwards right away, and you could tell right away that it was Herta and Rossi were the class of the field up front. So I spent most of my time watching that race, looking at the matchup bets I had, watching VK. I would have loved to see VK get up in the top 3. He was working his way up. Had a couple of issues, but. Yeah, it was a little frustrating for Rossi to do that for me, but hey, that's part of the deal. That's part of gambling. That's part of the reason we didn't bet him is because he just can't seem to win. I was just waiting for him I was waiting for something Rossi to happen to him, and it just it finally didn't. So he might be a guy though. We're taking a peek at this week though.
Yeah, speaking of this week, IndyCar, as you mentioned, is in Nashville. Now, my first question is, Mike, and I've asked you this on other tracks as well, only having 1 year's worth of data, and Marcus Ericsson winning last year, kind of a fluke, as you noticed earlier in the race that year, he flew in the air. He was Air Ericsson, but ends up P1 now. How difficult is it for you when doing research, when you only have 1 year of data? Is there another track, street course rather, that you find that is, configuration wise, sets up like Nashville?
So not at least we have something, right? So the handicap this week and the research this week is 1, This is kind of like the Indy race, the Indy road course race with the washout. This was what this race was last year. I'm tossing out the race last year. The race was won. Ericsson, he went fine in the air. He had to go off strategy, and he got super lucky that the yellows fell his way. I mean, the guy had 7 pit stops and won an IndyCar race. That was a huge outlier. I don't function in outliers, so when it comes to betting my own money, I'll take that as the 1 in every 25 races, something like that happens. So honestly, I focused on looking at practice and qualifying times, specifically the qualifying for that race, because I'm trying to nail who's going to qualify at the top, who did well. So I did look at that. I looked very closely at qualifications and practice times, also some of the splits during the race to see who was turning fast lap times during the race. You can't handicap the strategy in the yellows when those are going to happen. That's just gambling. That's just racing. That's still going to happen. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, the guy that goes flying in the air and starting in the back of the pack is not going to win the race. It does happen, which back to your question about the tracks, this reminds me of St. Pete. If you recall, we had a winner from the dead last twice in St. Pete. St. Pete's only got 1 or 2 passing zones. Otherwise, it's tight, and these guys are going to be throwing each other in the walls if they try to pass where they shouldn't. So reminds me a little bit of St. Pete. I will look, obviously you look at the other street courses as well as comp courses. But again, this race, this track, it's just like Iowa. And for Iowa, I was staring, not obviously street versus oval, but I was staring at New Garden from the beginning of the year. I had a big stars next time. I'm going to bet New Garden in Iowa worked out swimmingly. Nailed that 4-1 bet. Made a bunch of money in Iowa. Iowa's still the most profitable race I've had all year, right next to the 500. So this is the same thing. I had big stars next to Colton Herta. Herta should have won the race. He put it in he almost beat Ericsson even after all the crazy strategy. He was right there, and then he put it in the wall. So who knows if he would have caught him or not, but Herta's the guy. I might not even bet anybody else but Herta pre-race. So the question is going to be what kind of number and the sports books put out on it. There was some banter back and forth on Twitter. I put it out there. My hope was 4-1 or better, kind of like New Gardner was at Iowa. But who knows? Herta crashed out. Herta's not topping the points. The sports books don't pay attention like we pay attention. That's our advantage. So now they will get, if they start taking if they put a big number out on Herta, say 7-1, 8-1, people are going to bet that are paying attention, like myself and other people who bet IndyCar, and that number is quickly going to fall. So you're going to have to be quick if they do make a mistake, but they may make a mistake and give us a bigger number. And I think Herta is obviously the class of the field.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That was last year. That was Herta's race to win. I know you mentioned throwing that out the window, but yeah, Herta dominated that, and he just got something jumped up and bit him like Forrest Gump. Seems like that happens a lot to Herta. Now there are a few changes, and I don't know if you were aware. There are a few changes to the Nashville course this year. I think they're widening the turns a little bit, and then the restart zone is a little different as well. Does that change your thinking at all?
No, might be a couple more passing zones. It might change. Again, like always, we'll keep an eye on the practice times, see if they're similar. I always kind of look at practice times from the year before when they have that first practice and kind of compare and contrast a little bit to see if something's different. I think these guys are turning 114, 115 laps. So maybe if we see that all of a sudden drop dramatically, that may change my thinking. Either maybe putting in a few more bets pre-qualifying. Besides Herta, the guys that popped out to me, I might be looking to grab like a top 3 for Dixon. He was strong here. And then I mentioned earlier, Rossi. Rossi was pretty quick here last week. He rolled off quick. All the 2 Andretti cars were fast, but Rossi maybe when it rains it pours, or that wind kind of frees him up, and he puts it together for the rest of the year. Who knows? So if Rossi gets put out there at a 10, 11, 12-1, he probably won't because he just won. He may even be lower odds than Herta, depending on what the sports books put out there. We'll see. Probably tomorrow morning, afternoon, when we start to see numbers come out. But it all depends on the number, of course. But Rossi, Dixon, the other two guys next to her I'll be looking at. But yeah, we'll see if the track changes change anything. I think it just changes maybe the number of cautions we have. We had a lot last year. I think the drivers kind of made that known. It was kind of a trial there. If you look back at the replay, I mean, they were having a hard time. There was no such thing as too wide anywhere, and even that they were having trouble making. Herta had nobody near him when he crashed.
Yeah, the only other two drivers that I don't think you mentioned Newgarden, which, as you said, he's almost an automatic, it seems like. But the other two Penske drivers that have had great years as well, would you put a favorite as Will Power and or Scott McLaughlin as well?
Yeah, look, I love Penske. They're most prepared team, in my opinion. As we heard, the details matter. Went viral a couple days ago. That was funny. But he's right. That's Penske's strong on road courses. Obviously, I mentioned St. Pete. McLaughlin won there. Detroit will. It'll depend on what numbers are put out there for those guys and how the sports books kind of put it out. Do they put Power right next to Herta in that 4-1 range? If that's the case, I probably got to pick one before qualifying. But after qualifying, if the Penske cars did struggle here a little bit last year. So we'll see. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on it, watch and see what numbers get put up, and maybe wait till after qualifying to kind of pounce on those guys. But yeah, I expect them to be strong. And they're, if the sports books want to, they continually give me Power at 10, 11, 12 to 1. I'll always take that with the guy who's the qualifying king, just because I think the number is going to get worse, and I don't mind having Power tickets in my pocket come race day.
Absolutely. Mike, I know obviously we're not going to have information lines of that nature till tomorrow, probably around the afternoon or sometime. I know you'll tweet that out right away for people that don't already follow you. And again, shame on them if they don't. Where can they follow you at? And then is there any talk this weekend of another spaces for Burnout Sports?
Yeah. So at Indy_bet, you can also follow the @Burnout Bets channel. I usually tag them and everything. And then, Tony and I will probably do a Burnout Bets Spaces channel. We've been doing those usually the day before the day of qualifying. We're probably going to do one Friday evening. So keep an eye out for that. We'll send that out on the Twitter channels and give the information on when that's going to be. And then we'll probably get one in pre-race. So we'll probably have one on what we've been doing one Sunday. And that's really, Sundays where we have the final lines. We start to see matchups come out. And we have a better full betting board coming up before the race. So probably sometime around lunchtime on Sunday, a couple hours before the race, when we have all the information available to us and we have all the betting lines available to us.
Mike, good stuff as always. Go check him out, and we'll talk about a week or so. Good luck on your bets this weekend.
Yeah, man, have a good time. Enjoy yourself. I wish I was there. I think it's going to be on the list of places to go in the future here. So enjoy yourself and good luck.
Yep, thank you. Hopefully we'll be able to see you in the future then.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right. And that was Mike from BetIndy. Go check him out. If you want to win some scratch, I would highly suggest checking him out on Twitter. So that about wraps it up here from the Push to Pass podcast. Like I said, just a reminder earlier in the show, as I said, we will be at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix this weekend in Nashville. So make sure you are locked in, stay locked to Push to Pass on social media and things of that nature for race updates, in-race updates, and everything in between, as you see all of the social media sites rolling down there at the bottom of your screen. A huge thank you to the drivers that we were able to speak with following the road course race on Saturday. Also, again, huge thank you to Tristan Griner of the INDYBOYS podcast. Go check him out on social media. Go check out the work that the INDYBOYS do on their podcast, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts from. And then also, again, huge thank you to Mike of BetIndy. If you're looking to win some scratch this weekend, definitely pay attention to what he and everyone over at Burnout Bets is putting out on social media as well. So that does it for this week's episode. Huge thank you to everyone that will tune in and or watch and or listen. You guys are the ones that make this possible. If you are at the Nashville race this year, come up and say hi and tell me how much you enjoy this show and how you would like to see it get better down the road. So for Derik Vance of the Push to Pass podcast, we will see you in the next video.